Hi, my name is Nick Schules, and working with Meredith Melvin, we created the Music for the Masses. How has 100 years of technological advancement propelled music to the public at large? Excuse me. So, our project is about how different recording and music technologies have affected not just how people listen to music, but how composers compose music and how artists play music. So I'm going to spend most of my time talking about music before 1950. We're going to start off with the phonograph and gramophone. These were both invented right around the turn of the century, 1800 to 1900. And I've got some audio samples for you to listen to. So as you can hear, there's a lot of static in the background on these. And that's present on both of them. The gramophone uses a flat record, and the phonograph uses a cylinder. Both of them amplify the music in the same way, using a bullhorn to do so. Now, John Philip Sousa was a very prominent composer during this time, and he very much despised these creations. He thought that these would be the end of performance music as we know it. He thought that people, if they could listen to the music at home, they wouldn't come out to performances. So these also, in addition to impacting performers like Sousa, had an impact on composers like Igor Stravinsky. He wrote his Serenade for Piano. He specifically composed it with the 3-minute thereabouts time length in mind for a 78 RPM record. He wanted it to fit on one side so it would go uninterrupted. He also composed for smaller groups of instruments with a focus on winds and brass. We'll talk more about why in a second. Roy Harris similarly wrote his first symphony. It took up 7 sides of a record set, and he decided that, or the record company asked him to come up with one more recording because he needed to fill up the record set. So he had to write a piece that he titled 4 minutes and 20 seconds, which was the approximate time that it took to fill up that record. Recordings also had an impact on performance practice. Performance in different nationalities were, before this time, a little different. For example, the flute in France, they had a lot warmer tone, they had a lot more vibrato, and than their German and English counterparts. And after the advent of recording, the French flute style kind of took off. More people started playing in that style, and that's kind of the style that is carried over today. And that has been that way on several different other instruments, but for time, I just wanted to talk about the flute. All right, now the recording process for these. The record was around for pre-microphone and post-microphone. And the pre-microphone, they would use this bullhorn, basically the opposite of what the player looked like, and the performers would play into it, getting either closer or further away, depending on how loud the dynamic was supposed to be. People would actually stick their heads in if it was supposed to be really loud, or stand far away if it was supposed to be quiet. And it used moved a diaphragm that engraved the disc or the cylinder, so it was all electricity free. And then post-microphone, electricity came into the mix, and the dynamic range of the recordings was vastly altered. So people were able to be a lot easier on their performances, and it also created the opportunity for some new compositional techniques. Prokofiev actually found out that if you played very loudly into a microphone with a brass instrument, that it distorted the sound, and he used that as a compositional technique in some of his music to get a cool sound. All right. The 33 RPM versus the 45 RPM record, created by opposite companies with kind of a different goals in mind. The 33 was known as the LP, or the long playing record. Definitely was the staple for classical music. This is what a lot of people had in their homes because it was high fidelity, and it had the length so that you could listen to a lot more music on one side before you had to turn it over or switch the record. And it was made from vinyl because of a shellac shortage during World War II. The 45 RPM record created by RCA was much smaller than the 33, and it was an ideal size for a jukebox, so it kind of became the standard for singles. And it was also made from vinyl. Making these out of vinyl made them a lot cheaper and easier to mass produce and way less breakable. So this is when these two things came into existence, records really took off. All right, post World War II, the Allies got this magnetic tape technology from the Nazis, who had it since around the turn of the century, which is magnetic tape is basically plastic tape that's coated with iron oxide, and you use electricity to kind of magnetize it in a way. And then when you reverse the process, you play it back, it will play back whatever you magnetize, whatever the way you put the electricity into it. And this could store so much more information than records. So a lot of radio stations and record companies saw this as the future and started investing a lot of money in making it. All right, I've got one more thing to talk about. It's repeatability and replicability of recording. So having recordings was a really cool thing for a lot of different reasons. And I'll go through why some of these people thought that it was really cool. First off, George Gershwin. He said in 1933 that the composer, in my estimation, has been helped a great deal by the mechanical reproduction of music. Music is written to be heard, and any instrument that tends to help it be heard more frequently and by great numbers is advantageous to the person who writes it. So he was a big believer in getting music out to the masses and letting people listen to it. In our text, we talked about Steve Reich and his It's Gonna Rain recording and how he used tape to compose. And he wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have the ability to repeat what somebody had said. So he definitely takes advantage of the ability to repeat the material. Natalie Cole has got a really wonderful story. She actually did a duet with her father after he had passed using a tape recording that he had made. She actually was able to record while listening to him sing and onto a separate tape recorded duet of her singing with him, which I think is just one of the coolest things that you could do. And it also had a large influence on jazz musicians, because that jazz music is handed down traditionally as it's an oral tradition. It's not a generally written music. So jazz musicians used the record industry and the ability to repeat what they had heard on their recordings to basically learn the language of the jazz era. All right, that brings us up to the 1950s, and that's where Meredith is going to take over.
Next up, we're going to talk about how music technology from 1950 to today has brought the music to the masses. The music of the last 60 years has helped to make a continuation of the previous technology. There's been a huge society switch on the reliance, access, and uses of technology. Whereas before 1950, technology was considered a luxury or a convenience. In today's world, it's an absolute necessity. And innovations in technology worked to improve the cost, portability, sound quality, and availability of technology. Aaron Copland really paved the way of the Hollywood composer, and today's composers have become household names. People like John Williams and Hans Zimmer are well known, and people seek out the soundtracks of the movies that they love. Television really helped propel the music to the masses, beginning with Leonard Bernstein in 1958 and his Young People's Concert. This really used the medium of television to bring music to people in their homes, and it helped to educate children on music, making them lifelong learners and discoverers of music. Then moving forward from 1956 to 1989, Dick Clark with his American Bandstand show. It was a once-a-week show that really helped to propel rock and roll into the houses, where they would have guest musicians and guest groups on each week, and families look forward to the show to be able to see and discover new music. 1990s, 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 1990 Most recently, there's been an new innovation in the portability of music, starting in 1960 with cassette tapes, and then in the 1990s with CDs. People were able to take the music that they loved with them, as opposed to a gramophone or a photograph or fragile records. Cassettes and CDs traveled much easier. However, they did scratch, or the film of the cassette would become unwound. So innovation stepped in, and in 2001, the iPod or other personal MP3 players came to be. Now, in the size of a deck of cards, people could take the music that they loved with them and have hundreds of albums of music on one device, rather than having separate records or CDs or tapes for each one. However, innovation continued with the audio streaming. In fact, today in 2018, I don't own any CDs, tapes, or any other hardware of music, because I am able to stream online or offline and have an endless library of music, for either free or a very small nominal membership fee. Computers and internet and social media has really truly transformed the way people share and receive and listen to music. At what used to be room-sized computers that were very large, now is able to fit in a small laptop or tablet. And so now musicians and composers are able to write music and disseminate it faster than ever, which has helped to get music to the masses. In 1990, the internet came, and that really transformed everything. One composer that uses that really well, the tool of internet, is Eric Whitacre. And as you may know, he created a virtual choir where people could individually record their own vocal tracks, and then that was combined together to create a choir. And he really views this as the future of music, because it helps to create music and experiences for people that bring them together. And I've linked a really wonderful TED Talk that Eric Whitacre did on his virtual choir of Lux Rumque, or Light and Gold. And it really shows the process and the social media aspect of people being involved with the music that they enjoy. And I love this quote here that I put. It really shows how today's world and music is interrelated. It says, with the aid of social networking, we are all reminded of how true it is that we are all part of a greater world. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, they have made the world smaller for many. Our chorus of tweets and updates is a messy noise lost in the white noise of the internet. But when properly orchestrated with focus and purpose, the dissonant multitude can come together and create meaning and even glorious music. So, in addition to technology helping to get music to the masses, now we are seeing technology to allow people to be part of the process of recording music. So, looking back at the last 100 years, how has this technology helped to get music to the everyday people? Nick and I found 4 overarching themes. The first one is freedom. In today's world, we are not as much limited by the technology. We can record longer pieces of music, more music, have portability of music. And so this has really opened up the way we listen to music and the way we access it. The second one is the access of music. The cost of getting music has dramatically come down. Now, in some streaming ways, is completely free. And music is all around us with mass outlets, through the radio, through the TV, through the internet. We are able to get music at our fingertips within moments. The third one is repeatability. Now that music is able to be found anywhere, we can listen to our favorite music whenever we want at any given time, as opposed to previously where we would have to go see live musicians performing the music which we enjoyed so much. Now, wherever you are, whenever it is, and whoever you are able to get that music immediately. And then lastly, technological advances has helped to show more than ever that music is connection. The reason why all these technologies has come to be is because humans demand for that feeling of connection that music provides. And once again, I turn to a wonderful quote that really shows what the future of music is. And it's talking here about Eric Whitaker's virtual choir. It says the virtual choir is much less about innovation and much more about helping disparate people from all around the globe get together to remind them and us that every member of the human family is part of something larger than any one of us. This is the power. This is the power music has. This is also the power of human connection that Whitaker understands. So once again, technology is allowing humans to feel connected with their music, with their freedom, with their access, and with their repeatability. Here are some sources we found very helpful in compiling this information for you. We had a lot of fun compiling this for you and showing the last 100 years of music technology. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoy.